There is a study strategy almost every student uses. You have a test tomorrow, so you open your textbook, your notes, or the study guide and start reading. Then you read it again, and maybe one more time. After a while, something interesting happens. The material starts to feel familiar. You recognize the vocabulary, you remember seeing the examples, you can almost predict what the next paragraph is going to say. And that feels like learning. The problem is that recognizing information is not the same thing as being able to retrieve it. And that distinction can explain one of the most frustrating experiences students have. I studied this. Why couldn't I remember it on the test? Imagine that you're studying for a history test. You read, "The Treaty of Versailles imposed reparations on Germany after World War I." You read it again. Treaty of Versailles. Germany. Reparations. World War I. Pretty soon the sentence looks completely familiar. If someone showed it to you, you'd probably say, "Yeah, I know that." But close the book and ask yourself, what were three major provisions of the Treaty of Versailles? That's a different task. Now your brain has to produce information instead of simply recognizing information that's sitting in front of you. That's where students discover the difference between familiarity and retrieval. Rereading gives you lots of opportunities for recognition. Tests usually require retrieval, and those are not the same cognitive task. Here's what makes this especially tricky. Rereading usually gets easier each time you do it. The first time through a difficult page, you might have to concentrate. The second time, it makes more sense. By the third time, you move through it pretty quickly. That increasing ease creates a powerful impression. I'm getting better at this. And in one sense, you are. You're getting better at processing that material while it's sitting in front of you. But school usually asks you to do something else. Tomorrow, the notes disappear. The textbook disappears. The highlighted paragraph disappears. And your teacher hands you a question. Now you have to reconstruct the knowledge yourself. That's why an effective study session shouldn't just ask, "Does this make sense when I look at it?" It should ask, "Can I produce this when I can't look at it?" That is a much harder question. It's also a much more useful one. Here's a simple hack my teacher strategy. Instead of spending 20 minutes rereading your notes, divide that time between review and retrieval. Read a section once, then close it. Actually close the notebook. Turn the paper over, minimize the document. Now ask yourself, what do I remember? Write down everything you can. If you're studying biology, draw the process. If you're studying history, reconstruct the sequence of events. If you're studying vocabulary, write the definitions without looking. If you're studying economics, redraw the graph and explain what causes the curves to move. Then, and this part matters, check your answer. Compare what you produced with the original material. Now you're going to discover something rereading often hides from you: the gaps. Maybe you remembered 4 steps but forgot the 5th. Maybe you knew what happened but couldn't explain why. Maybe you remembered the definition but couldn't apply it. Good, that's useful information. The purpose of studying isn't to prove to yourself that you already know something. It's to discover what you don't know while you still have time to fix it. This leads to a strange principle of effective studying. Sometimes the study method that feels harder is actually doing more for you. Rereading is comfortable because the information is right there. Retrieval is uncomfortable because your brain has to search for it. You'll hesitate. You'll forget things. You'll make mistakes. That can make retrieval practice feel like you're doing worse. But think about what you're actually practicing. If the test requires you to retrieve information without your notes, then practicing retrieval makes your study session more like the task you're preparing to perform. You're not trying to make studying feel easy. You're trying to make the test feel easier because you've already practiced doing the difficult part. So here's a simple system you can use tonight. Step 1. Review. Read the material carefully enough that you understand it. Rereading isn't useless. The problem is relying on rereading by itself. Step 2. Retrieve. Take the information away and try to reproduce it from memory. Answer questions, make a list. Draw a diagram, explain the concept out loud, recreate a graph, teach it to someone else. Step 3, check and target. Compare your answer with the source. Anything you missed becomes the target for the next round, then repeat. Review. Retrieve. Check. But don't spend equal amounts of time on everything. Spend more time on the material you couldn't retrieve. That's what makes studying more efficient. Students often describe studying in terms of time. I studied for 3 hours, but 3 hours doesn't necessarily tell us very much. What did you do during those 3 hours? How often did you have to retrieve information? What did you discover you didn't know? Did your performance improve? A better question is, what can I do now that I couldn't do before I started studying? That shifts the measurement from time spent to learning accomplished. And that's the larger idea behind study efficiency. The goal isn't to study as long as possible. The goal is to make the time you spend studying produce as much learning as possible. So the next time you've read the same page 3 times and everything is starting to look wonderfully familiar, don't automatically assume you're ready. Close the book, put away the notes, and see what your brain can actually give back to you. Because the moment when you struggle to remember isn't necessarily the moment your studying has failed. It may be the moment the real studying has finally begun. Hack my teacher. Don't just work harder at school. Learn how school and learning actually work.